Hello, I'm Scott, and welcome back to Bike Ride Reviews. Today we're checking out an e-bike from Macfox, a new player in the e-bike world. Their X1S has a suspension fork, 500-watt motor, and motorbike styling. Macfox has been around for just over 2 years, and already reviews of its bikes and feedback from owners raise concerns. Some riders love the low prices, but others report electrical problems and a lack of backup from Macfox. So could the X1S be your budget price ticket into the world of exciting e-biking? Or just an expensive gamble likely to leave you with nothing but regrets? We're about to find out if the X1S actually delivers on Macfox's big promises. As I said, Macfox has been selling e-bikes in the USA for a little more than 2 years. The company specializes in moped-style bikes with hub motors, basic components, and low prices. Oh, and marketing that promises you'll dominate the streets if you ride one of their unbeatable high-performance rides. Or something. I don't know. Anyway, though they have a business address in California, Macfox is a Chinese company. The brand's website is littered with the kinds of sparse, vague, and inconsistent information that characterizes the websites of lots of these cheap e-bike brands. Now, that's not to say that all Chinese cycling brands are no good. Just that the Macfox website doesn't really provide much confidence that you're dealing with a quality product or company. And frankly, neither does communicating with the company in an attempt to clarify the details of this bike, as we're going to see later in this review. Macfox sells 5 models, all with the same moped-style design. We've reviewed 3 of them on BikeRide.com, and you can find links to those reviews in the description below. Ah yes, the Macfox X1S. Macfox markets this bike as a budget-friendly Class 2 commuter bike, and a wheelie-ready sidekick, ready to own the streets, bro. However, Macfox also says that the 500-watt rear hub motor gives the bike a top speed of 25 miles per hour with pedal assist or throttle. But that means that it doesn't comply with Class 2 limits, or in fact the speed limits for any e-bike class. The X1S has a 120mm coil suspension fork and 20 by 4-inch fat tires. Power comes from a removable 48-volt, 10.4 amp-hour or 500 watt-hour battery. Macfox offers the bike in a single battery configuration, with a claimed range of 38 miles, and a dual battery setup with 76 miles of range. We'll see whether those numbers hold up as we get into our range test. Macfox is a relatively new and unproven brand, with limited transparency around the manufacturing, support, and certification of its products. They also suffer from a lack of clarity regarding the actual specifications of this bike. For example, the Macfox website says that the motor puts out 65 Nm of torque, but the user manual says 50 Nm. In emails, they insist that it's 65, but based on my testing, even 50 Nm seems high. And then there's the question of how much the X1S can carry. The Macfox website says 220 pounds in one place and 300 pounds in another. Macfox finally confirmed to me that the bike's weight capacity is in fact 220 pounds. Or how about safety certification and weatherproofing? After all, the Macfox is marketed the X1S as a commuter and a paragon of impressive performance on the streets. Well, things get a little hazy here too. The Macfox website says nothing about UL safety certification or any IP rating, which is a big miss for both e-bikes and commuters. After all, you want to have some confidence that this bike isn't going to catch fire and burn down your home, right? So I went ahead and asked Macfox about this. And while I waited for a reply, I checked out the user manual, where I saw it mentioned that the bike has IPX4 weatherproofing. Macfox got back to me, showing a certificate that the bike is certified for UL 2849. And they also said that the bike has IP65 weatherproofing. I was surprised by this, having just seen it was IPX4 in the user manual, so I asked them again. And this time they replied that it was in fact IP54. So, who really knows? With 3 different answers about weatherproofing, I think that they're just guessing at this point, or they actually don't have any idea. Not the kind of answer you'd want when you're spending over $1,000 US on an e-bike that you want to be able to ride safely, and that's labeled as a commuter. The X1S has mechanical disc brakes and a single-speed drivetrain. These components are simple and keep costs down, and they also reduce maintenance requirements. However, they also don't perform very well, and seriously reduce the bike's performance and practicality. The result is a bike that kind of looks cool in marketing photos, and on paper promises both performance and bang for your buck. But both Macfox and their X1S give cause to question the quality control, long-term reliability, and after-sales support. With that said, let's dive into the main pros and cons of the Macfox X1S. I'm not gonna lie, I was hard-pressed to find aspects of the Macfox that deserve a big thumbs up. One of the bike's few standout features is the padded bench-style seat. It's thick and it's plush, and it does a great job of softening impacts and absorbing vibration. However, though it is comfortable to sit on, the non-adjustable seat is just too low for efficient pedaling, so you're forced to rely on the throttle. This may or may not be a deal breaker for you, as few people would really expect to pedal a bike like this. I was surprised by how comfortable the X1S was over dirt and gravel trails. Now, saying that, I didn't have high expectations, but it also did a great job of ironing out bumps and the roughness of washboarding. The bike was pretty easy to control, and it seemed to soak up impacts fairly well, despite the suspension fork being a cheap, non-adjustable coil design. And that's it for the pros. Now cons, I have a few. My first con is the motor performance. Macfox says that the X1S's motor is rated at a nominal 500 watts, and it peaks at 750. It also says that it puts out 65 Newton meters of torque. Oh wait, or 50 Newton meters. Depending where you look. Whatever the reality of the motor's specification, I found it completely uninspiring and painfully unresponsive. It took up to 3 rotations of the cranks for pedal assist to kick in. That means you're on your own for the first 10 or 15 feet, which makes pedaling away from a standstill very hard work. Even after the bike got going and the motor actually kicked in, things didn't improve much, with sluggish acceleration whether I use the throttle or pedal assist. Even with the motor at its full output, the bike took a long time to reach 24 miles per hour, and it never reached the stated 25 mile per hour top speed. Basically, it never felt like the motor peaked at 750 watts, or was putting out 65 Newton meters of torque. This meant disappointing performance on hills. The X1S has a single-speed drivetrain, with a 42-tooth chainring and a 16-tooth rear sprocket. This gearing both makes it hard to get the bike moving, and impossible to do any meaningful pedaling above 16 miles per hour. The low, non-adjustable seat results in a cramped pedaling position, although this is almost universal in the motorcycle-style e-bike category. Again, like most similar e-bikes, the X1S is essentially a throttle-only ride, with the option to pedal for brief periods at lower speeds. Now, shorter riders might find the pedal position more comfortable, such as the teenagers that it seems this bike is positioned for. The X1S's 500 watt-hour battery should be a good match for the 500 watt motor, but the X1S struggled to a pathetic 16 miles in our Pedal Assist 5 range test. And then on top of that, the battery display would fall by up to 3 bars anytime that the motor was worked hard, such as when you're climbing hills. With the displayed battery capacity fluctuating by up to 60% while you're riding, it's very hard to estimate how much range is left, making it far too easy to end up with a dead battery, and a painfully heavy bike to pedal home with your knees up in your face. Now, Macfox markets the X1S as a commuter. Well, it might do the job if your commute is 5 miles each way over level pavement, it never rains, and you're happy to wear a backpack or not carry much at all. The X1S doesn't have fenders, which are almost essential for commuting, especially since these fat tires throw up a lot more water and dirt than regular tires. Also, it lacks a rear light and indicators, which could be dangerous in commuter traffic, and are pretty much standard, even on cheap e-bikes these days. It may have IPX4 weather protection, so perhaps it can handle light rain. But again, who knows? Overall, I would never recommend the X1S for commuting. The regular X1S comes in an all-black colorway, or you can get the Bize Collab Edition, which is finished in an eye-catching mix of purple and white. This other edition also has an upgraded fork and display. The X1S comes in only one frame size, and Macfox says that it fits riders from 5'3" to 6'6". But the non-adjustable 33-inch seat height means that stated height range isn't realistic. With only a basic non-adjustable 120mm coil suspension fork and no rear shock, the X1S is really only suited to paved surfaces and some very light off-road trails. The small 2-amp charger takes 5 to 6 hours to charge the 10.4 amp-hour battery, and there are 3 pedal assist levels. An assist is all modulated by a cadence sensor when it eventually gets around to it. The X1S's 20-inch wheels have alloy rims and nutted axles, and they come fitted with 4-inch fat tires with an off-road tread. There's no indication that the tires have puncture protection or are tubeless compatible. The best thing that one can say about the single-speed drivetrain is that it should require less maintenance than one with a derailleur at least. However, the gearing provided by the 42-tooth chainring and 16-tooth sprocket make it hard to pull away, climb hills, or pedal above 16 miles per hour. Braking is handled by mechanical disc brakes and 180mm rotors. Given how many budget e-bikes now have hydraulic brakes, this is another letdown. The cockpit has a backlit LCD screen that shows the speed, which pedal assist level you're in, and the battery charge as a 5-bar readout. There's a twist throttle and controls for the headlight. The seat is 24 inches long, the grips are hard plastic, and the pedals are a standard aluminum platform style. So far, this bike's basic specification, lack of adjustability, cheap components, and unclear safety and weather standards raise some big questions. But how does the Macfox X1S deliver where it matters the most? Stick around as we get it out on the street and put it to the test. Some e-bikes, even budget options, pack a strong punch, and they do well in our standardized testing. However, with unimpressive results, the Macfox X1S is not one of those bikes. The X1S completed our small elevation hill climb in 2 minutes and 56 seconds, thanks to it managing to sneak past 20 miles per hour in the flatter sections of the route. And this was enough to put it in second place in this group of e-bikes, which all have 500-watt motors. Now, given how well the X1S did climbing our small elevation hill, you might be expecting great things in the next test. Alas, the X1S fell on its face in our medium elevation hill climb, where the bike's single-speed drivetrain and weak acceleration left it languishing at the back of the pack. Most 500-watt e-bikes with 7 or 8-speed drivetrains climb this hill in about 2 minutes and 30 to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The X1S staggered its way to the top of the hill in 3 minutes and 13, more than 30 seconds behind the other bikes up this 0.65 mile climb. From pulling away to reaching its top speed, the X1S just feels slow and underpowered. The lack of pep from both the cadence sensor and motor is clear to see in the acceleration tests, with the X1S needing 16 seconds to reach 20 miles per hour, whether you're using the throttle or the pedal assist. And the disappointment continued in the range tests. In the maximum assist test, it only managed 16.37 miles. Given that the range test only involves 753 feet of elevation gain, this result is pretty feeble, even compared to the other bikes with 10.4 amp-hour batteries, which travel 23 to 25 miles during this test. This regrettable result is undoubtedly due to the fact that the single-speed drivetrain and poor riding position make pedaling this bike almost impossible under most conditions. And things didn't improve much during the Pedal Assist 2 test. The X1S did manage to extend its range by 8 miles, covering 24.02 miles and climbing 915 feet. However, the other bikes, all powered by batteries of the same capacity as the Macfox, traveled 32 to 35 miles during this test, leaving the X1S far behind. Our braking test measures how far a bike takes to go from 20 miles per hour to 0 on dry pavement. The Macfox needed 23 feet to stop, one of the longest distances that I've ever recorded in this test. Among recent competitors, it's one of the worst performances, with other bikes generally stopping in 18 to 20 feet. As I described in the cons section, the first thing that I noticed when I threw a leg over the X1S was the low seat and the cramped pedaling position. The seat is well padded and comfortable, but with my feet on the pedals, my legs were bent exactly 90 degrees at the knees. There was no room for proper leg extension. As a result, I had to stand on the pedals to pull away or to climb hills. And this wasn't the only thing making it hard to get going. The cadence sensor is very slow to respond. You're completely on your own for 10 to 15 feet, as it takes 2 to 3 full rotations of the cranks to trigger any pedal assist. And then the power comes in very lightly, with a long ramp up to the motor's full power. Riding the X1S using the throttle is better than pedaling, but it's still disappointing. The motor is gutless, sluggish, and slow to respond. And it runs completely counter to Macfox's claim of wheelie-ready power. And it's pretty disappointing for a moped-style bike that really relies on sleek looks and motor performance as key selling points. Using the throttle, I could eventually hit 24 miles per hour, but only on perfectly level ground. What little power the motor had soon petered out when climbing any hill. Up 6-degree grades, the bike could barely reach 18 miles per hour. And sometimes less, nowhere near the advertised 25 mile per hour top speed. When the incline steepened to 12 degrees, the speed fell to 6 miles per hour, and I had to stand on the pedals to help the struggling motor. When this miserable performance is combined with a range of just 16 miles using Pedal Assist 3, I don't really see how this bike can be called a commuter bike. It also weighs a hefty 73.4 pounds. Which is 8.4 pounds more than Macfox claims. So what are the positives? Well, the comfortable seat and robust frame made for a surprisingly good ride over light off-road terrain. The frame and suspension fork absorbed bumps well, and those 4-inch tires provided cushion and traction on dirt roads. It's just such a shame that the motor is so lacking in power, which you need for hills and loose terrain like sand. As far as I can see, the Macfox X1S is only suitable for short throttle-only rides and some light off-road terrain in areas where there are no steep hills. So where does that leave the Macfox X1S? Unfortunately, this bike falls short of the bold promises that are made by Macfox. Despite claims of wheelie-ready power, the 500-watt motor delivers sluggish acceleration, and it struggles up moderate hills. The single-speed drivetrain and the cramped pedal position make the X1S little more than a weak electric motorbike with a woeful range. The X1S lacks commuting essentials like fenders, a rack, and a rear light. At 73.4 pounds, it's very heavy, and the brakes are among the worst that I've tested. At this price point, established brands have better motors, UL compliance, and genuine commuter features. And if you're really sold on moped-style e-bikes, there are similar bikes out there that offer much better performance at a much lower price. The X1S might work for short recreational rides, but it's just too pricey for what it gives you. What do you think of the Macfox X1S? Are these failings enough to put you off? Or do you think you could get it to wheelie? Let me know in the comments. And if you own one of these bikes, I would love to hear about your experience with it. If you enjoyed this video, how about leaving me a like and a comment? And if you found this video helpful, you can subscribe to the channel so you can easily stay up to date with your trusted source for e-bike reviews. I'll be back soon with another review, so stay tuned and thanks for watching.